Man, oh man, oh man. Boy, forget the background noise. Woo, y'all, Bellator MMA is up for sale. Man, who would ever thought that? I mean, I'd have never thought this would happen. Now, you guys can sense the sarcasm on my voice, okay? Y'all can sense that sarcasm. Yes. Folks, I'm kind of wondering why this didn't happen sooner. And I'm not, being mean or trying to, spew hate in the Bellator direction, because I know a lot of great fighters over there, okay? I know a lot of fighters I built relationships with that I know them personally. We talk, a lot of Bellator fighters. And some of them are going to get mad when I make this video, but folks, I got to tell the truth, okay? Bellator has actually lost like damn near $100 million, y'all. Like bleeding profits. So now you start to look at the whole makeup of Bellator, and then you begin to understand why, okay? You begin to understand why, like, certain fighters only fight once a year, if anything, okay? Or you have fighters in the Bellator stable that they fought, and actually one of their fights very convincingly, but then you don't see them again until another year. Like, what's up with that? I used to wonder that, but now this right here gives a bird's eye view on why these kind of things happen to Bellator. Okay, now your big stars, they're going to push them. Like Chris is going to fight at least twice a year. Okay, but these other people, they're not. Guys, and one thing that I found kind of crazy, is that Bellator, they share the revenue. So they share half of the revenue with the fighters. So folks, let's look at this, okay? Let's really look at this, okay? They share half of the revenue with the fighters, y'all. That's what they do. Guys, I'm no UFC fan. I'm not a fan of Dana White. But Dana White don't give the fighters 50% of the revenue. I think they're lucky if they can get 5%. And if Dana White could ever pay these guys 10% of the revenue, these guys will make money hand over fist. But he's not going to do that. Scott Coker does. Okay, so when you look at these numbers, okay, the blue means that that's the actual revenue they made. The red is the net income. Folks, you want the red value to be positive. Okay? You want the red value to be positive. You don't want the red to be negative. No matter how much revenue they made, the net income needs to be positive. When you look at 2010, they had a revenue of $3.1 million. But look at this, y'all. This is staggering. They lost $11.7 million in net income. Now, we gotta take 3.1, we gotta divide it by 5. We gotta do that. So that means that $1.55 million was made in revenue, because remember, they pay half of the revenue to the fighters. The fighters got half that money, so we can't say that. Okay? In 2011, okay? Still $5.4 million in revenue, better, but they still have a loss of $8.4 million, guys. That's like crazy. How do you survive? How does a person survive on that? Like, I don't get it. And I don't understand how Bellator was around this long. I don't get it, man. 2012, they did a little better. $9.2 million in revenue. But guys, you have to focus on the net income, okay? The net income is what's important, okay? Because Bellator, they're only telling you the revenue, but they're not telling you where the losses come from. So one slot is for revenue, but one slot is for the losses, okay? It's for the losses, and they raking in hella losses, okay? It don't matter. You take the revenue plus all the losses, and that's where the net income comes from, okay? That's where it comes from. In 2013, they did a little better on revenue, but they still got $9 million of loss. So even after all that revenue, guys, they still lost like another $25 million, y'all. That's crazy. That's crazy to me, okay? They lost $25 million. And I'm reading it right. That's how you read it. Okay. In 2014, $21 million, but they got a net loss or net income of negative $14.7 million. Folks, this is staggering. How the hell were they able to stay afloat? I don't know. $14.1 million in 2015. Net loss of $17.3 million. Net income of that, $18.3 million in 2016. But they lost they got a net income of $18.8 million. Okay. Now, they made $35 million in 2018, but that's from the Bellator deal. That's from DAZN. DAZN paid the UFC They paid him 35 mil. It was a deal. Okay. Well, that's revenue. So guess what? Guess who get half of that 17 mil? You guessed it, the fighters. So now, okay, Bellator really revenue is 17.5 million. Go figure that. Okay, go figure that. 17.5 million revenue. Okay, then they signed that big deal with Viacom. Viacom began to pay them in 2019. I remember that because I reported on it. They signed this big deal with Viacom with Viacom Sports. They paid them $80 million the first year. Okay, so finally the UFC, after being paid $80 million from one source, which is Viacom. Now we got to know that some of that revenue, they got sponsorship, so I'm pretty sure the revenue was a little bit more than 100 million. Okay, but you know the net gain, the net income gain was 8 million. Folks, let that sink in. Okay, they're bringing in over probably $100 million that year, but they can only put in their bank account 8 million. It's insane. Okay, in 2020, and I'm gonna talk about this in 2020. Okay, they made $100 million, but that's one source. That's the Viacom, and maybe got all the other interest that they share. They probably could have brought in maybe 150 million. Okay, for the year. So Bellator, literally, y'all, whatever the revenue they bring in, they keeping 10% of their revenue. No 5% because you're paying the fighters. Okay, you're paying fighters half of the revenue. Okay, you're paying them. Insane. And this is what I read. Okay, insane. So how do they stay afloat? How do they do it? Scott Coker got to be like Rasputin or somebody, man. He got to be Rasputin, the Rasputin of MMA. Man, they've been trying to kill this dude off for years and years and years, and he still find a way to return. Every year. I'm going to start calling him Rasputin Coker. Or Scott Rasputin. Yeah, I like Scott Rasputin better. Scott Rasputin. Man, insane. Freaking insane. It's amazing, man. Amazing. But I mean, hey, it's amazing, but it's madness. It's amazing, but it's madness. Amazing and madness at the same time. So what do you do, man, if you're Bellator? Okay, now, you're trying to get me to believe that Bellator made all this money, right, during the middle of a pandemic. Guys, 2019 and 2020 was in the middle of a damn pandemic, y'all. And y'all are trying to get me to believe that Bellator made all this kind of money in the middle of a pandemic. Folks, this is insane. I don't even know if I can believe it. They made all this money during the middle of the worst pandemic in American history. Or just period. So, guys, I don't even know if I physically believe. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I quite believe that they made that much money during the pandemic. I don't know. And people were struggling to get fights. People were struggling to try to figure stuff out. That's what people were doing. They were struggling, trying to figure out what to do and blah, 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 blah. Whew, folks. I tell you, man. I tell y'all. Got to shake your head. But now we know why. You look at this, man. This is their little revenue block. And, this is from 2019, okay? It's all the breakdowns. So 13% of their revenue comes from sponsors. So, hell, yeah, so I was right. They probably, make another $20 million on top of the deals that they got. Which, folks, this is telling me that Bellator is bleeding. They're bleeding profits. Okay? Bellator is bleeding profits. They're bleeding them. And where's it all going, y'all? Seriously, where's it all going? I think we all know. Where is the money going? What are they doing? I don't know, but I tell y'all, yeah, they're up for sale. Now, people have been speculating that the UFC would want to buy Bellator, but no, Dana White's already confirmed that no, they don't want that. Who in their right mind would buy that? Seriously, who would do that? Because you acquire, Dana White don't want them problems. He don't want to bring that in there. Now you got to bring in all these old ass fighters. Then you got to get rid of them. Okay, you got to get rid of them. You got to settle lawsuits because people gonna get mad and try to sue you for letting them out of their contract. Like Dana don't want the headache. And I'll be honest, who want that headache? Scott Coker done took Bellator like a used car, done drove it, fucked it all up, and then said, here, I'm gonna sell you this car. I'm gonna sell you this used car. Oh, but the car used to run good. Oh, yeah, this is a good car, man. It's a great car. You just need to, put a new engine in it. Yeah, you need to put some paint on it. This car gonna need some new tires. Okay, don't forget the tires. But other than that, hell, this is a good car.